And thank you to Rabbanit Dr. Liz Shane, Lila Sachs, and Tara Hain for their help tonight. Thank you also to the Aviv Foundation, who always encourage us to find ways to bring us together meaningfully and impactfully. There are many, many things that I love about SVIVAH, but I think what I'm feeling here tonight is an aspect of SVIVAH that really just fills my heart to bursting. I am looking out at a Zoom room full of women of all ages, from all over the globe, from every walk of life and every kind of connection to Judaism. And we all decided to show up tonight because we want to learn from each other. For me, that is the definition of community. This is for me the definition of a kehila kedosha, a divine collective, a group of people, some who know each other, many more who are complete strangers, who know that their lives are better when they can learn from the lives of others, and who show up knowing that they too have some wisdom to offer into the room. And I love that more than anything in the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you for showing up in this way, for showing up with your beautiful full selves, with full hearts and open arms. Truly, thank you. And all my thanks to Carrie Bornstein, who you'll meet and get her bio in a second, who is the orchestrator of this entire evening, who put so much thought and care into bringing us together for this obviously needed conversation. Thank you, Carrie, for bringing your deep experience with and intuition about supportive community into this gathering that is who you are and who you have always been since the day I met you. You have always been someone who celebrates each and every human in front of you, making them feel seen, making them feel needed, and making them feel holy. I think all of that is present in tonight's gathering. So thank you so, so much. Thank you to Rabbanit also, Aliza Sperling, also our Director of Education, who suggested this topic in the first place. Aliza, you really knew that this was a conversation that needed to happen. Thank you for encouraging us to bring it to life. Carrie, thank you so much. Let's get started.
It is so wonderful to have you all here and to be here with you all this evening. This topic clearly does not get the attention it deserves, but wow, if anyone needed some data out there that there is a hunger for this conversation, up to the minute, right this moment, 538 people registered for this event tonight to talk about ADHD and Jewish women. That is mind-blowing. This gathering tonight is not just about ADHD. It's about exploring how it uniquely intersects with Jewish identity and with womanhood. ADHD has long been stereotyped as a disorder predominantly affecting boys. Like, think about the 12-year-old boy climbing the desk in school. That's like the picture of ADHD that we might hold. But as our understanding evolves, we're increasingly recognizing how it shows up in women and in girls. And being Jewish adds another layer. There are communal expectations, there are holidays to prepare for, there are whole rhythms of life that can feel like it's on fast forward. So we're here tonight to unpack how ADHD influences our lives within this context, whether it's for ourselves personally, or whether it's for someone we love, or both. For all kinds of reasons, many of us have experienced feeling like a bit outside of the Jewish community, despite our very real challenges being so much more common than they might seem on the surface. So our goal tonight is to change that. This conversation isn't just about sharing stories, though we will. It's about finding community and realizing that we're not alone with what we carry. We want everyone here, no matter what your vantage point is for coming to this topic, we want you to feel seen and supported and to take strength from each other's experiences. We have a lineup tonight that includes insights from experts who understand ADHD in women and girls and in Jewish life, and as well as personal stories from people who live it every day. So I want to thank Dr. Sara Markowitz, Hilary Stern, Tema Smith, Cantor Hollis Schachner, and Rabba Melissa Scholten-Gutierrez for being the wonderful humans that they are, and for bringing themselves so fully tonight. We're not just talking clinical terms here, and I want to make it explicit that nothing tonight should be understood as medical advice. We're not here to diagnose, to, that's like not the goal. We are here to be in community together and to hold each other's experiences and to share real life tips and the experiences that we hope will resonate. So whether you're here because you have an ADHD diagnosis yourself, or maybe you're wondering if you might, or maybe there are things that just resonate about the topic, whether you love someone with ADHD, whether you share an office with them, whether you're just curious about the topic, you are in the right place. So thank you for being part of this community and showing up for yourselves and for others. So with that, we're going to jump in. I want to start by introducing Dr. Sara Markowitz, who literally wrote the book on ADHD. It is called Kosher ADHD. You can read her bio in the chat, but suffice it to say that Sara has tremendous wisdom and life experience to share. I know you will learn so much from her. And so you're aware, in the of my helping to support Sara this evening, she has asked me to help moderate timing in case some of that ADHD time blindness may sneak its way in. So if and when I may jump in to interrupt, crack that timing whip here and there, it's cool, it's planned, she wants it. I'm not a jerk, I promise. I am keeping us on target. So Sara, we are getting started like a minute early. You've got 20 solid minutes. You take them.
So
take
in
those
this
20
moment,
minutes.
I want to just thank you, Carrie, and it has been a privilege to work with you. And I just want to say that the world functions well when you have all different types of people. And I know that is so much about Ariel. I am inspired and really privileged, feel very privileged to be here. And so number one is not only do I welcome it, I think that is the paradigm of leadership and how ultimately we are going to move forward, is being able to really recognize that God has created many types of people, and we all have different ways of being. And sometimes we think I should be a little bit more like them. And sometimes we can learn from others. And other times it's also great to just surround yourself by people who are really great at certain areas and you're great in other areas. And so the hope for me here, and I think, again, I just want to say thank you. This SVIVAH community is it so resonates with so much about what I have come to find as probably one of the most impactful things when it comes to many areas that could support a person in life, and especially when it comes to ADHD. And for many of you, you might be thinking, what is ADHD? But I'm going to tell you my main point at the end first, and it's a little weird that I'm doing that. For myself, one of the ways that I learn how to manage ADHD is by figuring out how it's also going to help others. And one of the ways, and the main ways that I've done it, is through groups. Group is the power of community, and group is one of the main things that we could take away. And so before everyone, if you get overwhelmed at any point, I would say take a deep breath, take it in, we're going to be okay, or an anchor, and we'll come back to it no matter how all over the place we might feel. But even before we're overwhelmed by the effortfulness that can come along with ADHD brain, recognize that you're already doing one of the most effective things that you could possibly do when it comes to ADHD. Okay, you'll have to as we work through it, hopefully we'll get to understanding why that is. Okay, so in the chat, if you could write what made you come tonight, family, friends, self, or spouse, or all of the above. It's too complicated to do F, A and B, but maybe just write in, you could write in multiple things, just what made you, what prompted you to come tonight. Awesome. You guys are rocking this. Family, friends, self. Okay. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. We will understand how it is quite hereditary and genetic. So it won't be so wild if there's more than one person in your house who has this. Okay, so Carrie like launched into this, but when you imagine ADHD, what is the image that pops up in your head? This is something that you could also write in the chat. It will probably be amusing to read it at a different point. I don't know if we could keep up, but I think about, like Carrie said, the 10-year-old or 12-year-old like ADHD boy. I feel unique in the way that I have a presentation more of a ADHD 10-year-old boy than I do of the most typical girls. But don't worry, I still can share the wisdom of what it's like for women who do not. I say I have all the types of ADHD, the inattentive, the hyperactive, the impulsive. They were like giving it out that day. I was like, I would like all. I joke about it, and for anyone, I say this at work also. I would never want to offend anybody. So if you take my humor, if a lot of times if you're not in a space that could be laughing, it's not so funny, right? Humor is one of the something that's very valuable for me. I could be able to laugh at myself, but it's only after being able to cry at different points and not laugh that I could do this. In fact, in the book, it's the addendum that talks about ADHD bloopers, that we should all like send in your ADHD bloopers. And the reason why it's not part of the book is because of that point. When you're first understanding what it is and working through that process, it's not so funny. And in fact, like on a day-to-day basis, when it's like really kicking you in the kind of feel like it's like getting you more than you feel like you're managing it, it's not so funny at all. In fact, it like really wreaks havoc on your life. I would say that I'm actually here from Israel. We were debating, my husband and I debating where to come and what to do. And I said, I will come to Israel early as long as like you sit with me, make sure like I am set up the way that I need to. The flight was like so late, but when I think about my own ADHD and like getting myself ready, I know I wasn't sure when it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be fine because I also went to sleep so like we slept straight through the night, thank God, on the flight. It was like a late flight. It really is 8 p.m. for me right now. Like I didn't even miss a night. And I'm happy to be here from the Holy Land. But the point is that, and I'm going to ask some questions for you, but for me, my brain, right, gets, I've been doing this. I literally wrote a book on this, and that is quite, I joke that it's the most ADHD and the least ADHD thing I've ever done, right? Because it's the most ADHD because I have many other things going on, and this is like an extracurricular, and it's the least ADHD because like, how did I write a book? Unclear. It's only because I actually learned a lot of the ways, and it was co-authored, but I laugh about that. So I just, you know, my husband said something like, well, 14 years later, you're really taking it in stride when it comes to being able to like take on something with for work and like get organized and still get stressed, but it like manage. So I just want you to know, like part of the process, like there's a parallel process when it comes to understanding this. So yeah, so while I present like this, I hopefully will be able to give you an understanding of like multiple pathways and understanding how this works. And as you learn about it, you could like probably jot down notes for yourself and what you see and how my ADHD, I joke, like you could see all the different things popping up as it comes. Okay, we're going to jump into it. Jewish women. And hold on, as I see on the side, you guys did a great job in writing about how you see certain things. Okay, look at you guys. Okay. Think about how much you juggle in your lives. Okay. You have whatever, whether it's the expectations that you have, and you can write this down, you could share it or not. But what are the many expectations that you have, the areas, if you had to say, so you could go, what would you have to say in terms of areas that you have going on in your life, right? So could it be work, family, community, holiday planning, like wanting to be able to give to others, managing whatever it is that comes up in your own life, doctors, I don't know, all of those. Thank you, Yocheved from Colombia, amazing. Right? Yeah, exactly. You want to be perfect. And what I think one of the hardest things, because as we said, please understand the context. We're not like, you have ADHD and you have being a woman and the expectations that come, right? Like you just have, oh, not ADHD, you have being an adult, I think most people here are adults, right? You have being an adult, then you have being a woman, then you have being a Jewish woman. There's like understand the layers of expectations that we're coming along. And as you said so beautifully, we want to do it and we want to do it well, right? We want to put ourselves into it. And it's a lot for everyone. That's not unique to ADHD, but when it comes to ADHD, it feels almost insurmountable. I'm going to say a few things. You could say thumbs up, thumbs down, and I'm going to launch into really understanding what it's about. Because like really, if it's just about a little bit of inattentiveness and hyperactivity, okay, so I, cut some people off. I'm not so good with time. Like, why is it wreaking havoc on our lives? Why are there kids that are not able to be accepted into the school system that we have? We're a pretty understanding system. So how could it be that it's something that is so pervasive? ADHD, I feel like, is a misnomer. And I don't just feel that way, right? It really is a misnomer because it doesn't communicate how devastating and challenging it could really be. And at the same time, okay, right. So go thumbs up, thumbs down. Ready? We're going to do a few of these and we're going to launch into a little bit more just to get a sense of your own profile. Okay. How many people feel either that something could take 2 minutes or 10 hours? You could just do like thumbs up. It's in the reaction, thumbs down. Okay, executive functioning difficulty. Thank you, Julie Byers. Okay, ready? We're going quickly. How many people have signed up for a meal for somebody else and forgot to bring it? I know that's really the very devastating one. Yeah, I know Carrie's feeling bad for us. I know. Now I only do it on Shabbos. I only do it for Shabbos meals because I know that that's when I'm the most focused. During the week, I'm flying. Embarrassing. You could be embarrassed for me. I could handle it. How many people, like anyone ever have like a new opportunity at work, like has anything having to do with coming earlier, waking your child up, and then feel like, oh my gosh, I can't hack it. I can't come consistently. It's really good. We got a lot of, yeah, okay, right? And you're like, I'm not a morning person. I just can't do it, right? Like getting up in the morning. And then what about going to sleep at night? Does anyone ever feel like they want to turn things off, but like they can't end the night? It's like, I want to, but I know that I can, but it's like, and I have no self-control. How come I can't do this? I have no discipline. I don't have it together, right? How many people, ever feel like just beyond overwhelmed? Just like, it's like their state of being is like, okay, I feel overwhelmed. Anyone try to organize your space and no matter what, it's like, you can't clean it, as if like, you're like, I have a doctorate, but I cannot figure out how to clean this space. It's just not getting clean. Then someone else comes and they just clean it in like 5 minutes. Like sometimes I have a woman, I love her, Isabel, and she cleans. And I'm like, you're Mary Poppins. And I was working on it for 3 hours. Anyone else feel like emotionally dysregulated? Like you feel like I am passionate about everything. And you're like, how can I be passionate about everything? But I'm like, I'm going to tell you why I'm passionate about everything. Ever anyone find that like you call someone or someone calls you and all of a sudden like you're only speaking about what you want to talk about, but they called you and you're like, oh yeah, why'd you call me? And it's not because you are intending to be offended, right? Like none of this is intentional. Anyone ever feel like the people that make money on bills being overpaid is like, you are that person? You're like, oh yeah, there's a deadline. It's not so funny. Anyone wait till last minute to get things done? Anybody have a hard time getting in today or feel like someone had to like resend you a link? It's exhausting. What are we talking about here? Yeah, the ADHD tax is real. It is real. And it's something, and so is anyone ever feel like when it comes to thinking in the box, maybe not so much, but when it comes to thinking out of the box, you're like, you could totally rock it. Probably better than most people can. Yes. Okay. Right. We're going to talk about the impact for women and different parts of their life. Understanding what ADHD is and why I'm spending time talking about different areas is so important. And we're going to like quickly flesh out like why would you want to like a diagnosis or not. At its core, according to Russell Barkley, it is a challenge of executive functioning. It's a disorder of executive functioning, right? Heck is executive functioning. This is brain-based. It is a part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but we have all the emotions and everything, the way that we react. And the most sophisticated part of the brain that doesn't even develop in teens is the part that for us is called the prefrontal. It houses, it's like the CEO of the brain. And it houses so many different parts that really help us follow through from everything. Like to be CEO, it has a vision, and you are able to, what comes in the executive functioning, there are multiple parts of it, and start thinking about you, because it's really valuable to, and when it comes to ADHD, you don't have to have the diagnosis to have a unique profile of executive functioning, okay? So I'm gonna explain some of the different areas, not gonna go into all of them, but just so that you know and you start to understand it. And why would it be valuable to understand it? Sometimes the diagnosis helps because otherwise you don't give it enough credence, and it can be really helpful for treating it. But most importantly, really most importantly, how we understand ADHD, how we approach ourselves and everyone else who has it is so significant. Because it's not enough that we experience a number of things much more difficult than others, but then we are so disappointed in ourselves for not being able to do it. And we're so disappointed because we don't realize, women, especially, because young are not diagnosed as often. I'll go into that right after. We don't realize that this is what's going on. And so unfortunately, we see it as a character flaw or a moral deficiency. We just see ourselves as a mess, but it's really not about that. ADHD is intense and has wonderful qualities to it, but it can be a beast. And the more we understand it and can be compassionate, we can also find ways to like help ourselves. One amazing point about ADHD is fMRI studies. So this prefrontal cortex, they found that ADHD brain, right? It's different than a neurotypical brain, and there are a lot of different ways. I'm not going to go into it. That the behaviors that are equivalent to lifting 10 pounds for a neurotypical brain feel equal to lifting 100 pounds for the ADHD brain. If that doesn't give you empathy, right, for the child or your spouse or yourself, when you leave stuff on the floor, you're like, but it only this happens all the time, right? My mother-in-law, I love her, like, and she's so kind, and she's just like, they are so organized and together. So it's like the opposite base. So when I like leave the car, so they're like, oh, just like bring this in, it will take 1 minute. It feels like if I take in the things from the car, like my cup of coffee, but it's going to take like 1,000,000 years. I don't know, right? Time blindness is one core characteristic feature. I just feel like, oh my God. And I'm also overwhelmed by it because I experience tasks as bigger than they are, right? And time blindness means you don't have a sense of time. And so you can get lost in things. Either things feel like it's 2 minutes or like 10 hours. If it feels hard, it's 10 hours. If it feels easy, it's 2 minutes. Obviously, you're not baking dinner in 2 minutes. I mean, some people can. My daughter once did like a cake where it was like 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Like she was like really making these cakes pretty quickly. Working memory. I don't know if anyone ever saw Finding Nemo. And we're going to get into like, if you think about like your Judaism, but like the Dory and Finding Nemo, like if I don't have a whiteboard, like if you're telling your child, okay, like I need you to get your knapsack, pick out your snacks, put on your clothing. Every time you say something new, you erase the thing that's before that. That is pretty frustrating. That's called working memory. It's our ability to hold things in mind. That is pretty devastating. If you think about it, like when I eat food, I remember to make a bracha right before. I just had my water, made a blessing on it, right? When I have to make a blessing after, to thank God, this was like amazing food. I am so distracted. I get so busy with other things. My working memory is onto something else. I'm like, I'm not going to eat bread anymore during the week because I cannot remember for the life of me to do that. And obviously it comes up more when you want to be someone who's thoughtful and you forget like, oh, it's my family member's birthday. Emotion regulation, anything that it comes to inhibition, impulsivity, the ability to put the brakes on things, planning, organizing, attention, the ability to listen. Do people ever tell you like, you're not really listening to me, right? And you're just like, you are listening, but your mind is very busy. The ability to focus your attention and attentional control, and also like to be able to shift attention, right? To go to the next thing, to be able to put the brakes on anything, to put the brakes on your thoughts. You jump from one thing to the next, to put the brakes on your emotions. Someone had sent something that was very funny, right? That like, I mean, it was funny because that people could laugh about it, a mother and daughter, right? That they can laugh about You know, the fact that one person is really intense about something, you experience emotions intensely, and then you react right away, right? Because that's impulsivity. It's you, everyone has the same feelings as you, but Russell Barkley says you have a hard time putting the brakes on that. And that is something that could devastate a family, because if you have a child who, let's say, has a hard time putting the brakes, they just react right away. They really want to put the brakes on it. It's something that we can work on and develop, but it's hard. And then you have a parent who does that, right? It could create, it's like taking a match and throwing it in with like a whole box of things. The ability to regulate, to prioritize, to plan, flexibility, and all of this, even when you learn skills, the ability to put it, to implement what you know in the moment you need it, this is what it's about. And so this is pretty significant. This is a lot that is going on. And if you think about it, Judaism is meant to be for everybody, right? It's just what it's meant to be. If you think about the spirit, like God wants to feel connected to us. And yet, think about prayer, right? And it's hard to like imagine it or to sit for long periods of time, right? Because you feel this internal sense of restlessness. And what if you have a child who is struggling in school? They could barely sit through school, and then they come home and they have to go to Hebrew school. And then you're going to push them on that. You want them to have like a feeling, a sense of pride. And yet this is really hard for them. I see this. I see men like who are in shul, women who are in shul who like, they're like in and out. And it's, I always say, like, if you could do something, set up the shul and like help somebody else out. But when you have to sit there for that long, it literally feels like a torture chamber for some people. And that's not what it's meant to feel, right? And it's not meant to feel that like, I want to actualize my potential. I want to have good middos. I want to be someone who has good character traits. And then people see as like, you know, you don't shut your mouth. And like, why do you make those comments for kids, right? They call it like chutzpahdik. I don't know. I definitely got my fair share of that. I always say, if I wasn't in a school that like appreciated extracurriculars, I definitely would have been asked to leave sooner. I was not asked to leave, but thank God.
Sarah,
Right, character traits.
we have a few minutes left, just FYI. You're doing great.
Okay.
Keep it up. Go.
Okay. So this is a brain-based disposition, and it does, there are settings that we could set ourselves up with that are much better, right? I always say, if we could get people to adulthood and then they could be in the job that they want, the things that they're interested in, because it's not that you can't be motivated. People are always like, well, they like this one time and then they're totally inconsistent. And like and then they weren't paying attention a different time, or like, how come he could play his video games or she could play her video games, right? How could you do that? It's not fair. But if you think about it, it's about, you are excited by things, that tasks that are new. Interesting. Tasks of like routine nature, like adulthood, are experienced as extremely difficult. And when you think about women, why does it come out so much? Women are like coming to understand this. It's that girls, if you're hyperactive, then there are behavioral issues, right? Then you're like at risk in the community. But most girls, if you are more of an inattentive type, or sometimes you just, the social expectations, a lot of girls are more able to pick up those social nuances. Although when you do make those comments that might be insensitive because by accident, right? My friends joke with me when I was in high school, I made some of those comments and I feel bad about it. I really like work on it now, but I even interrupt myself and I apologize for people. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Then I'm going to interrupt you. I'm like, I interrupt myself if it feels better, but I don't know if it might not feel better. Right. But with girls, that the presentation, they're working so hard, it's so effortful, and we're not noticing that they have to work so much harder, right? And most girls are not even getting like, if medication could be helpful. And we always say pills are not skills, right? That you also need skills. It's a disservice to the world that people just need medication. I don't know, in very rare cases is medication adequate, right? You have to learn, like, I set alarms. If I don't set the alarm exactly when I think I'm going to need it, and it has to remind me what I'm going to do, it doesn't help me. I'm just like, la, 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 like, and I press snooze. I really don't know. It could be something very important. And people, rejection sensitivity, you know, sometimes we just say people are difficult, right? Oh, they're so dramatic, like they experience the world in such an insensitive way, and they have trouble putting the brakes on it. Wouldn't it make sense that it's going to come out this way? Of course it would. Right? Isn't it going to make sense that this kid is going to have trouble if you're not like getting very excited and someone's animated and bringing them into it? They're going to space out. Yeah. And think about, so girls are not diagnosed. So women, start to own, very many people start to recognize it in like their children. And when their children gets a diagnosis, or women have so many more, like I said, adults, a woman, and then a Jewish woman, and if you're, there's so many elements, and people when they, and sometimes it's not even, it's just like if they get a really high level job and have more responsibilities, then they start falling apart because people are compensating so much. And if you are one of those people who have felt like you are working so hard, try to notice and be compassionate to yourself. And it is really, really hard. And I just want to say that these moments, the aha moments, when you're like, oh, it's ADHD, there's a name for it. I'm not just like a slacker. And it doesn't make it automatically better. It is an effortful process, and you want to surround yourself in an environment that can be helpful with people who can be compassionate. Yes, yoga, meditate. There's so many things that can help. And sometimes though, as Dr. Russell Barkley said, the difference between kids and adults who succeed with ADHD is the compassion of those around them. And I have to say, my husband's like, I have to thank him, because if it wasn't for his kindness and compassion, and I've learned from him to be more kind, because a lot of us can notice as we're thinking about this, about the voice that we have that is so self-deprecating, right? And if we don't really label this as ADHD, it really erodes our sense of self.
Yeah.
And we apologize for like being, and we really
Thank you,
want
Sara.
to be able to empower ourselves. So I'm going to end with this point. Right? So many people find that getting a diagnosis is helpful, or at least understanding the profile. And medication, I'm not saying it can't help, but I'm not coming as a medical professional. Everyone, speak to the people that can help there's so many different types of professionals that are out there. I always say, like, people say, oh, a coach can be extraordinarily helpful if getting through, you need scaffolding. I say adulthood doesn't have scaffolding, which is the ability to get support. Yeah. When I ask my husband for help, I am choosing to ask him. That makes me the adult. I still need to ask him for help, guys. So whether that's okay or not, that's just part of how it is and who it is. But the empathy, the compassion, and I'll end with this point at the end, but really to understand that this is brain-based and it will come out in certain ways, and that we it is more difficult, and there is a lot that we can do as a community to support each other as we go through this. Okay. I will end.
Thank you. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Sara. Like, incredible background and scaffolding. Exactly. You're scaffolding us right now, and foundation to go on through the rest of the evening. I'm so grateful for your getting us like really into these weeds. We're gonna bring in some other voices now. You're gonna meet them directly, hear lots about them. Their bios are coming in the chat, but I just want to share like one quick gem about each of these extraordinary women who are coming on to this panel that Sara is going to facilitate at 3:40 in the morning in Israel, I suppose. Bury that lead. Rock on, man. Okay, so Cantor Hollis Schachner, I'm going to start by introducing you. Hollis, I have known for probably almost 20 years now. I don't know, like it's been a long time, and I have gotten to know her in a variety of capacities. And like, what you all need to know about Hollis is like, whatever you see here tonight, there is like an extraordinary, this is like the iceberg. There's an extraordinary depth underneath and beyond what you're going to see of like superhuman sense of calm and compassion and wonderfulness. So I'm so grateful that you're here and doing this tonight, Hollis. Melissa, I think I've known you like maybe 10 years, Melissa Scholten-Gutierrez. And like the thing that stands out to me so much about you is your thoughtfulness, your passion, and your joy, and bringing together so many different strands of life into something that is like incredibly meaningful. I just like want to sit and talk to you forever. So you all are really going to enjoy connecting with Melissa and Tema. Okay, so if we went from like 20 years to 10 years, I've known Tema for 0 years. We just met. maybe a couple weeks now. But Tema joined in a conversation that was going on in the Year of the Jewish Woman Facebook group that you all should join if you're not part of it. I think, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, great community, and Tema like jumped in the conversation and just really brought such thoughtfulness to the conversation about Jewish women and ADHD, and it really sparked a lot of beautiful conversation. So I'm so excited to hear from each of you tonight. Sara is going to facilitate our panel. We're just going to jump right in. Go for it.
Okay. Is it? I guess I'll throw out the question. Do we have an order that who would like to go first?
And I can drop out of the spotlight for now.
That's great.
Check people. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot. So, but I think for each of you, we really want to hear about what your relationship is. What is your story with ADHD? That you can share some like points about how it presents with you, your loved one, your process of like really finding that, and how it fits into your life. Okay, House, you look all ready for this. So get us started.
Okay, I'll jump in, and someone has to like wave red flags when I should stop talking. So I have been a congregational cantor at Temple Shir Tikva in Wayland for the last, this is my 24th year. So I've been there for almost a generation. And as I said earlier, when I met friends here, that this is my very first grown-up job. So I'm still in it. So that's wonderful. It means I've had the opportunity to really stay in the same place, grow, build skills, build relationships, and that people there really know me, and they know me for my crazy, and they know me for my warmth, and they know me for my foibles. And the reputation I think I always had there was as someone who does fun, sparkly things, but also leaves total chaos in my wake. And I've been described as someone who kind of like shows up and brings big, cool things, and then other people have to follow me around with a dustpan to like clean up what happens in the making of those things. So with that being said, I was formally diagnosed only this last year by my primary care physician, who actually had opened up a conversation with me because I had mentioned my children both have ADHD and my husband has ADHD. So we are 4 for 4 in our house. And I had always just assumed that that's who I was. And that's very consistent with my childhood. I was the kid who got banned from restaurants from like leaping from table to table, and whose third teacher called my parents to say Hollis just got up to sharpen her pencil 17 times over the course of the hour today. And I remember distinctly thinking, I cannot sit in this seat for 1 second longer. And the only reason I'm allowed to get out of it is if my pencil breaks. So it was like any strategy to be able to move my body as a kid. But I was disciplined for it. I was the behavioral problem, and it was draconian, which led to all of the feelings of low self-esteem, and that grows up into imposter syndrome, and still trying to catch up with all of that. So at Shir Tikva, we brought in Dr. Roberto Olivardia, who's an ADHD expert at McLean and at Harvard. My dad, who's a pediatrician, happened to be visiting, and I was sitting between my dad and my husband while this expert was presenting on girls and ADHD and reasons why they're undiagnosed. And my dad, the pediatrician, was elbowing me in the ribs on one side. And as he talks about adults, my husband is elbowing me in the ribs on the other side. So it felt like the time to talk to my doctor about it when it came up, and she called it, she did the assessment, and it lit up. I will say, as a mom, my son had a hard run of it as a double exception kid because he has ADHD. He was the kid who was bored and bright. And a lot, if I was hard in a classroom, he was very hard in a classroom, but because he was trying to engage wholeheartedly and with his whole body, and not because he didn't care, but he's keen for that. And he is someone who couldn't be medicated successfully because medication sent him off the rails. It destabilized his body chemistry entirely. So as a mom of a child who I'm watching relive some of my own experiences and have his own, it was very, very tricky. managing him and having to send him to a school and say, he's yours to educate. Please treat him with love, but I can't treat him with meds. And to watch him in that environment was tricky. And I have a daughter who also was very much a pleaser and very much a masker, and didn't get the support she needed because she was just too successful, even though she was tearing herself apart. So both of those things in my house. And but I'll stop and turn this over to someone else after I just say one more thing. My son went to Jewish day school, and in the heart of a crisis for him, where he was really dismantled for a period of time, and we really didn't know what the future was going to look like, and he got some scary diagnoses and was put on some scary meds, and we had to know our kid better, be the expert on him in order to help him through the process. A school psychologist said to me, Hollis, take a breath. He's wonderful. He's going to be okay. This is a bad moment, but he's going to be okay. And your job is to keep him safe, help him grow, and do not break his spirit. And that has been our mantra ever since. And he has thrived in some very linear ways, but thank God he's. And what I've come back to is wishing someone had said that to my parents. Keep her safe and help her grow, and don't break her spirit. And I keep coming back to that every time I encounter a squirrely, explosive, bright, sensitive child in my path, that they need that as well.
That is so powerful and beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay.
I'll jump in. When you said about your daughter is the I just lost your phrase, but the people-pleasing masker, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. And Tema too. I also got diagnosed as an adult, although about 7 years ago now. I similarly was in a Jewish environment. I was in rabbinical school at Maharat, and we had a Yom Iyun, a special day of learning, focused around, actually, I think it was around neurodivergence. And we started learning about ADHD, and I was like learning things, and I was like watching this presentation from an expert, who all these people were, I don't remember, didn't check my notes. And I was reading, learning and listening and reading, and I was like, this is my brain. And it just like, it blew my mind to feel like I was seeing my brain reflected back at me in the slides. And I was like, oh, this explains like my entire life in a moment. And I was postpartum relatively recently postpartum with my daughter, and I had only recently also been diagnosed with ADHD, with anxiety, that had also been missed for my entire life because I was a people-pleasing masker, highly intelligent human. And when you are a girl growing up in the 80s and 90s, those are things which all just got swept under the radar, that if you were smart and compliant, it didn't matter, right? If you were smart and compliant and you weren't disruptive in class, it didn't matter. All of the stuff that was being buried inside, and all of the ways that my brain was, I call it now my boing boing brain, was just moving 10,000 miles a minute with either too many thoughts or worrying, not worrying, but also that, I couldn't stop. I've never been able to stop my brain in one direction or another for my entire life. And so it just sort of clicked into place in that moment. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that, right, is then I've been able to be proactive with my children and their diagnostic processes. I have a 10-year-old who is both autistic and has ADHD, and a 7-year-old daughter who has ADHD, as well as every other human, I think, in my family, either diagnosed or undiagnosed with different levels and we all look different. And I think that's also like a very, one of those interesting things about ADHD is that every single one of us looks different in how our ADHD presents, which is so.
I just want to reflect for both of you how that you are taking ownership and over something that we're saying a whole school system is struggling with, right? And like, And then when you have your own experience where it's so much, and then you're doing this for your children, it's really the ability to see the extent of that advocacy. And yet it's so painful to see that we have to start with this process, what feels like over and over again. And that is why it's just like, as I'm taking it in, how many people are here. And I really feel like this is the beginning of something so important, because it shouldn't feel that everyone has to go through this process on their own. And again, just to understand that when a person has ADHD themselves and has to implement things that are going to be helpful, like it is something crazy that the world asks of us, and yet you're doing it, and that's pretty amazing. Okay, Tema, we are pumped. Let's go.
I am going to try and talk without repeating things I've already heard people say. And I just, as Sara, you were asking for like, who's going to talk first? I realized that one of the ADHD, like, self-regulation things I have tried really hard to do is not be like me, like right out the gate. And like, I think it's working now that I recognize it. I think it's working. But anyhow, this is really exciting for me. And I just want to start by saying, so I was diagnosed in January officially. So I'm new to this, but I have suspected for years and years and years. And I don't remember exactly when, but I remember saying to my mom before the pandemic, like, I'm seeing stuff about women and ADHD on like social media, and like, I think that's me, right? Like, I really think that might be me. And so we went back and forth and had conversations because I was like, should I go get diagnosed? I don't know. And ultimately, I think what drove me over that precipice to go get diagnosed was the pandemic happened. Right? I had just transitioned jobs immediately before the pandemic from a congregational job where I went into the office 5 days a week and sometimes Shabbat too, and holidays but there was some structure to that. I had started working in a job that was already remote, but I had started to build structure around the fact that like, hey, I'm used to going into the office in the morning. I will go and work from a coffee shop in the morning. And then the world shut down. And all of a sudden, it was me alone in the four walls of my apartment with my dog and my laptop. And all of these systems that were barely holding on, like completely collapsed. And I started to sort of say, okay, like, I think there's probably more to this that I should go and look at more closely. And eventually, long story short, I transitioned into the job that I have currently. And I now work in a very stressful, vicarious trauma-inducing job where I'm looking at the darkest anti-Semitic stuff all the time. And after, it was around, I had already made the decision to go for the diagnosis before 10/7 happened, but like the destabilizing of that just kind of pushed me over the edge. And I was like, I'm doing this. And the other factor is that my mom decided to go and get diagnosed as well. And I'm pretty sure I saw her in a little square here tonight. So hi, Mom. But my mom, who's a therapist, went through diagnosis, and I sort of said, look, if they say you have ADHD, then I definitely do too, and I will go. And sure enough, at 69 years old, she was diagnosed with ADHD, and then I followed suit at 40. And it has been like so many light bulb moments for me, of a few sort of more funny things, and I'll come back to that. But some of the things that I've really noticed, because I am now a manager of people, right? And when it was my own job, the fact that like I started at 5 minutes before the deadline didn't matter because I got it done by the deadline. But my ability to get them to do the things before the deadline is hard. And thankfully, one of my closest colleagues is an educator who has family with ADHD and has tons of experience. And so she and I kind of brainstormed ideas. But I was like, oh, this is really a different set of challenges than when I just ended up working all night to finish the thing. This is now impacting other people's jobs. The last thing I'll share is, my mom and I were reflecting the other day on how she and I fight, right? These are two women with strong opinions about ADHD and or with ADHD. And we get into these things, and I'm sharing this because she posted about it when I shared on Facebook today. She posted about it, about like the ways in which the two of us dysregulate each other. And I think about the fact that so many of us are undiagnosed in the community, maybe working together, or we have multiple people with ADHD in our families or in our communities. And the ways in which that we can just set each other off into really wild spirals is kind of amazing to think about. The fact that either we've learned to mask and cope, or in the other extreme, I remember people just being like, oh my gosh, the way you and your mother fight is like, how do you even, and we fight for 2 hours and we're like, but I love you so much. And we hug each other and it's over. And people have never really fully grasped that about us. So it was funny just to think about now that she and I are both working through what does ADHD look like? We're like, oh, that's what ADHD looks like. So all of that is to say, I was like almost terrified to come here and talk tonight because this is not a thing I talk about publicly because it's so new. And also, like, I am just being so validated by Sara, by your talk, and even just the way you delivered your talk and watching the chat. I was like, wow, this is so validating. And Melissa and Hollis, both of you, that we are, and I'm looking at all the people I know in community who are either here and are chatting about having ADHD, who obviously I had no idea I had ADHD, and the comments on my Facebook post from friends of mine. We are a big, powerful community who just don't know who each other are. And that's a really exciting thing to tap into. And I am just grateful for tonight.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking about that point that you're making as like you get to understand it, the more people understand like how like own it or see it, and like then we can personalize it less. Also, when like other people set you off or they say something and they have it, you're like, oh, the compassion really extends because like we don't take it as personally. Like, okay, it's a struggle for them. It's a small point. Quick. I know that I have so many questions that I want to ask. I want to ask, in terms of just what have you found to be the most helpful, or something you would tell yourself to give yourself like, to your younger self, or to give yourself like that sense of chizuk or that sense of strength in doing it. And also like when it comes to the Jewish community, these are two questions, but I want each of you, when it comes to the Jewish community, where do you find the challenges that come up, and what would you want to see from the Jewish community in tackling this? Because Tema just said, we are a community, and I think that is also where the answer will lie, the power of us coming together. And so, let's get this going. Okay. You want to get started? Tema, you go first.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in really quickly here because I think my thoughts are very actually concise on this. But one of the things that has helped me is a thing that I recently rediscovered, so I have inflammatory arthritis and for a long time struggled to hold a pen and write with it until I found a pen that I liked. But by then I was so like primed to think I couldn't hold a pen. And I remembered in university, how did I remember everything? I hand wrote everything. Whether it was like notes from class, or how I wrote a paper. I once had a professor who asked for the outline to be handed in with the paper, which meant I wrote the outline after I wrote the paper. But it was like, because I would just handwrite like, oh, here are all the quotes that I'm eventually going to build into a paper, which is not an outline. And so, remembering that sort of muscle memory sort of feeling of like, oh, if I handwrite this, I absorb it differently. And then I've just been experimenting, like what's going to work for keeping on top of the things. So far, this, I will also say, is only working in work right now, right? Like my work life is going way better. Everything else, I still feel like I'm figuring out, because I feel like in many ways, like obviously the consequences of having ADHD at work are like, oh, am I still gonna have a job if I can't keep it together? Whereas life feels a little bit easier to fall apart and then pick up the pieces when it becomes necessary. So I'm still working on that. excited to hear everyone else's strategies. But one of the biggest things that I would love to see in the community is, and I'm speaking as a Jewish professional here, there is such poor understanding of the impacts of ADHD for Jewish professionals. And, I think back to Tobin Belzer had done like a study of millennial Jewish professionals and how like they didn't show up to Jewish stuff because they felt like, why am I going to do Jewish stuff on the weekend when I'm doing all the Jewish stuff all week? And I had always kind of related to that. And then I realized it was like, no, it's not about that. Like I've always wanted to do that and find other community. And the expectation that you'll show up and be present and be on because you're a professional all the time. Tobin is fantastic. Hi Esther. I see you in the comments. That expectation that we're able to just be on, and then still manage our lives is just not. It was never sustainable, especially for women. But like when you add ADHD into that mix, just absolutely unsustainable. So, just my thoughts there is that there needs to be a lot more understanding and a lot more attempt to put supports in place, and accessible options. And, I think a lot about hybrid work environments and what does it mean to work from home and all of these pieces. And we're just not there yet. We're not having that conversation at all. Never mind, like, we need to do it better. It's just not happening.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We're working backwards? No?
Sure.
Okay.
So in terms of like telling my younger self, like wish I'd have known sort of thing, is that I wish I would have realized like all the bad stuff people would say to me was like and I want to like go back in time and like tell myself that like to not take it personally, right? Like, yes, some that's like rejection sensitivity dysphoria stuff, that like that RSD thing that like you're going to, but to like, that's actually about your brain and how your brain works, and your brain works differently, and you're going to figure out how to work with your brain, and then you're going to realize that your brain is actually really amazing and can do really amazing things once you learn how to work with your brain and not against your brain. They're like clutch quotes, which actually I don't want to bring them up here because like they're yucky, and like they're that, right? We commented earlier about like you can either like laugh about it or cry about it, and these are like cry about it moments, which like I don't know, brings the vibe down, and we don't want to. But like there are like a lot of really bad cry about it moments, right? That can happen. Like people say really, really mean stuff to us, and like it's yucky, and including people who like should have known better, like professors in my MSW program. And like not cool. So I think like if I could go back like to that version of myself and say like you're going to figure out how to work with your brain, and it's going to be really amazing to see like where you get to when you learn how to work with your brain. And then in terms of like the Jewish impact, like I really would like our community, and I'm like sort of looking at I'm saying this, right, like the Orthodox community particularly, to like, I don't know, like realize that like there is a lot of executive functioning required in Orthodoxy. I mean, like across all of Judaism, but like a little more so in Orthodoxy when we're looking at things like saying brachot certain numbers of times a day, right? Saying prayer, right? Tefillah, brachot, prayers, whatever, right? Either way you want to frame that, right? Like
anything time bound, yeah.
Right? Like there's a lot of time-bound things, right, in religious Judaism. So I guess not just Orthodoxy, but like religious Judaism, right? Like if you are living a life in this framework, that time-bound life and that ritualized life and requires a high level of executive functioning. And especially if you have the sort of brain that I have, which some people find like crafting really set routines like helps their ADHD. I am not one of them. I am like a revolt against all of them. Like, you can't, what is a box comment that someone had in the comments, like I am one of them. Like you cannot try to box me in. Like you tried to tell me when to do something and I'm gonna like jump out of it and explode your box, and you're gonna have a lot of parts that come up after me.
Say like minimal structure with like a lot of flexibility.
Right?
And
Exactly.
some structure and a lot of
Right.
flexibility.
And yet somehow I decided that the Orthodox rabbinate was my calling in life. This was before I figured out I had ADHD, I think. I mean, I know, but you know, I joke and I kid, but in all seriousness,
But
but like,
if you look, King David, like he's the paradigm I think about, like the biosocial theory, right? This idea of like he was so passionate. Like some of our leaders are extraordinarily passionate and intense. They're known as red, the same as like right that Asa was known as red. This is like it's what you want in a lot of ways. We want people who are passionate and bring in energy and have a spirit, and also will follow through with everything and be detail oriented and follow up with you and go to that. Like,
right.
yeah, totally. I'm with you. I hear it's very.
So, right, for our community to realize that like this is a thing and it's a struggle that people have, and it's like not so easy always for people to do all of these things, and it's not just our youth, and we can't educate people out of it, and we can't force kids to show up and we can't force kids to show up in a certain way in day schools, which, oh, by the way, can't educate all of our kids anyways, and that's a separate issue, right? Our schools and our day camps and our institutional settings aren't actually prepared to service all of our kids either. That's a
Right?
different conversation.
It is a hard in the world, by the way. I just want you to know a lot of schools, like
They're working
people
on it.
struggle with this. It's real. We got, but and yes, it's very real. Yeah.
So
Hey, Sara. Hey, Sara, can you invite Hollis to speak? And then we'll
Yes.
move to our breakouts. Cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
Let's do it.
Bye.
But
Okay.
I'm enjoying listening. I'm learning so much. I'm used to my own voice. This is nice. It's really good. What was the question? Sorry. Okay.
Do the Jewish community part, because we're gonna have a chance to do more like tips
No
and
problem.
unless there's something quick. But
I'll make my comments really simple on the Jewish community part here. I think I would have completely, I say amen to everything I just heard from everybody else on the personal front. I think I'm picking up on a theme though, that just, this is preaching to the choir, but we are adults self-selecting into this space right now. And I find that a lot of the work that I experience my corner of the Jewish community doing is focused on kids with mental health or ADHD or anxiety or different, you name anything under the umbrella of needing off-center help, right? It's focused on the kids. And I think for me, as a person who's quite learning to be proudly outspoken about being off-center myself, right? That for me, modeling that actually adults need to be in this conversation space as well, and that addressing the needs of the parents in the room is as important of addressing the needs of the kids, addressing the needs of the not parent adults in the room who hold spaces as well in Jewish community, and maybe feeling isolated in their own ways in relation to family support. So what are we told each other as adults in Jewish community? Because I think we have really gotten good at addressing needs of kids, even if we haven't quite figured out how to do it as well as we can. We know that's a thing. Addressing our own needs as adults, I think, is a thing we could be better about.
Thank you all so much. Right. Yeah. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for the willingness to share.
Thank you so much to each of our panelists and to Sara. Really, truly. We're going to have an opportunity to split now into two different groups, and I just want to share each of the options. If you maybe, let's just say, have ADHD yourself, or maybe you're wondering if you might, or maybe you want to hear from Hilary Stern, who's coming up here now. I'm so excited to introduce. Hilary is an ADHD coach. You will read her bio in the chat, but like she does this professionally and works with all kinds of people she will tell you about. So if you're thinking about this from that personal lens, you want to hear from Hilary, hear her story, hear about being a coach, you're going to get to stay right here. So you don't have to like worry about clicking this and that and where do I go and how do I find the button. If it's like this is your thing, you just stay put. If you are here tonight thinking you want to think about a loved one, and providing support for that person, whether it's a partner, a child, a coworker, whoever, somebody that you are connected to, close with. We are going to have a breakout group that Sara is going to lead. And I want to just make explicit, wherever you are, wherever you're going, you do you, and you do what's comfortable for you. So if you are, maybe like, especially for this portion where we're like breaking down a little bit more specifically and with populations here, if you want to leave your camera off, if you want to change your name to something else or whatever, like if you're feeling sensitive about like who else is in the room, hopefully people feel the trust in the space here, but like for whatever reason, if you want to, switch things up, please feel free and do that. Other than that, like people should just go or stay wherever it's most comfortable for them. So Liz maybe, or Ariella is going to give instruction. Liz is nodding. Great. Take it away.
As someone with ADHD, it's been very hard, and a professional, it's been very hard to sit here and wait my turn, but it's time. And I also have children with ADHD, 4 children as well. So I got it all in, it's all in my world too.
Are people seeing the breakout room option and button? I'm seeing in the chat that there's some questions about that.
No, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
No.
So can we get
if you see there might be 3 dots that say more on your screen, and if you click on that, then you should be able to see breakout room.
It's all the way on the right of my screen, just to let y'all know.
Can't get into what I get into. There's only one breakout room. So if you don't want to be in the breakout room, if you want to be in navigating relationships with someone with ADHD, then you should click. But if you want to be in tips and strategies, then you should just stay right where you are. You don't need to go. Okay.
And I can come off of Spotlight.
Sure. I'm going to turn off the screen share for now, because I think that might also be making it harder for people. And
I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get ready to share my screen, just to let you know, so we can get started, because I want to. Are we still going to have, even though we're 10 minutes later, Carrie? I just want to.
I will text you an update on timing, but like, factor more or less what we're saying.
Okay, great. Thank you. It has been a pleasure to be here tonight. And, there's so much to say. And as you all know, as we know of being people who have ADHD and sitting, and listening to everybody else, I mean, there's so much we can share. And I really would love to hear from all of you, but that's not going to work because we all talk a lot. So it's going to take a really long time. As I sit here and try to kind of calm down my heart rate from listening and enjoying all of the stories, because I can just relate to so many people out there. I think about I'm gonna bet about my story, but not get into as much detail, because I know a lot of people have shared. But I am going to share one thing to kind of bring us back to center, and it's kind of a mindfulness activity to kind of bring us back to kind of a calm sense of calm, which is very hard for those of us with ADHD. Mindfulness plays such a huge part in it, because our mind is all over the place. And really, one of the things I love to quote Dr. Russell Barkley as well. And one of the things he talks about is there's a misconception. People think ADHD is the inability to is not being able to focus on something, but really it's the inability to focus on the right thing, because we have so many things going on in our brain at one time. So it's the inability to really make sure that we're focusing on what we're supposed to be focusing on at that time. So to bring us back to center, I want you to think about 5, just in your head, just think about 5 things you can see. Just look around where you are, 5 things you can see. And then think about, I'm going to kind of go through a little quickly, 4 things you can hear. 3 things you can smell. 2 things you can feel. That could be like your fingers or the coldness of my sparkling water. And 1 thing you can taste. Okay. And overwhelm is such a huge thing for us. So that would be a great way to get us centered in life when we get overwhelmed by the busyness that's going on in our brain. I'm going to show you, as I talk a little bit about my story, I'm going to show you this. This is my brain, or a brain that I have created. When I think of all the different words that come together and that remind me of my ADHD, I'm thinking about all of these different things. And I want you to look at it and kind of think about what speaks to you, what pops out. We tend to focus on the negative, and there are so many positives. So here, I want to go a little bit into my story. When I was 17, I was diagnosed in the early 90s, and it was then called ADHD. Mine was without hyperactivity. So now we have ADHD with 3 different presentations: predominantly inattentive presentation, predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation, and then combined type. I was diagnosed inattentive because I was having a hard time focusing in school. They said, you probably have ADHD. My dad, being a pediatrician, my mom was a special educator, was like, oh my gosh, of course she does. It's been in front of us, my whole life. Nobody ever figured it out because of the good grades and blah, 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 blah. Same kind of situation. They gave me Ritalin, didn't really teach me much more about it, kind of sent me on my way. I had some accommodations, maybe small testing environment. Oh, I did extended tests on times on my SATs and ACTs and all of that. Went to American University in DC to become an educator. And I was an okay student until I got into my major. And once I got into my major, I was a 4.0 student. So I wonder if you can relate a bit to that as well. I went on to get my master's in administration, and I trained teachers for many years about best practices in classroom management and teaching pedagogy.
Well, listen, you look at the timing the Democrats did this. They did this right after the Republican convention.
Oh, wait,
and
I don't know what's going on here. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. See, distractions, right? And I trained teachers for many years, and I pride myself in meeting the needs of the learners in my classroom. And it wasn't until my oldest of 4 was diagnosed that I began to truly understand myself. So let's back up to 30 years ago, just for a second, okay, to teenage Hilary, who's one of my very, very best friends, in the kindest way possible, told me that I created problems out of nothing. I was often told to calm down when my outgoing personality was like a little out of control. Still get told that sometimes. And because of this, I constantly had to feel like someone I wasn't. I struggled with this because I wanted to be liked. I was a pleaser. I am a pleaser. And there was emotional control, there was hypersensitivity, there was empathy, empathetic, like to a fault. All of these things were going on, and nobody knew then that that was part of ADHD. And then when my son was diagnosed, I was seeing the emotional component play out in such extreme ways that I was so nervous. I thought, what is this? Is it manic? What's going on here? Da, da, da. And when he was diagnosed with ADHD, I was like, really? As an educator, I'd been a teacher for almost 20 years at that point. The situation's here, the emotion could be here. And this has been me my whole life. And I just played it off as a character flaw. And it happened over and over and over again throughout my whole life. You know, it's since I was a little girl, I dreamed that one day I'd become a mom. And I'm blessed to have a wonderful husband and 4 amazing children. And being a parent is not always easy. And being a parent with ADHD brings on challenges too. So I had all of these things that affected me then. They took me through adulthood. I went in to be a teacher and I was like, files? What? I'm supposed to file these papers that I'm getting every day. I'm a really good teacher, but I have no idea how to organize myself, how to organize my thoughts, how to organize my files until someone actually showed me her file cabinet and said, this is what you're supposed to do with all these papers. I had no idea. So then I was supposed to come, and now I'm a parent and I have 4 kids, 3 who have an ADHD diagnosis, 1 who I think also has it as well, the 4th one. And we make it work. And it doesn't always look like I imagined, but that's okay. And I think the most important thing is that we give ourselves grace. So now I want to, there's a lot more to my story. That's kind of an abbreviated version, but now I want you to look at this and kind of think in the chat, throw out in the chat, what speaks to you? What is your ADHD? I'm going to pull up, let's see. Can anyone type in what any of these words? Sensitive, impulsive, intuitive, unique, anxious, risk taker, creative, compassionate, indecisive, fidgety, enthusiastic, impulsive, driven. My brain looks like a challah. Someone wrote, my brain looks like a challah. Thank you. Visionary. Ooh, I like the fun. Visionary. Okay, good. Now I want you to add your words. That was my next thing. Anything that I haven't said here, I want you to add. And by the way, the reason why it's a brain is because this has to do with our brain, right? Of course. I want you to think about your story. Worry, anxiety, anxious. Weirdo. Okay. Disorganized thoughts. Yes. If you noticed when someone's speaker came into the chat and it kind of, threw me off a little, and then I had a hard time kind of getting back on, right? So my brain was like, wait, set shifting is really challenging for me, going from one thought to the next. And then I had to come back to what I was talking about. Creative chaos, perfectionist, and we are going to talk about that. Problem solver, intuitive, yes. Okay, these are all great things. And and my brain keeps asking why there's more than one of each word. I think that's great. I think that yeah, there because of just the way the word art worked. But I think that's a really good point. So I want you guys to kind of, I'm gonna go to the next slide and I'm gonna read this off. Okay. I want you to think about how you can relate to some of these things. Okay. How can you relate? How good are you? Let's like kind of give ourselves a rating. Maybe you can kind of jot it on the side or you can put it in the chat at creating boundaries. Give yourselves a 1 for not so great, 2 for, kind of, 3 for I am like so awesome at this, right? Creating boundaries. How can you relate to time blindness, understanding time? Are you really good at it? Are you kind of good at it? Okay. Motivating when things are not interesting to you. Think about your level of that. Interrupting others, interrupting yourself. That was a really good point. I'm constantly interrupting myself. Emotional regulation, inability to follow through, or even inability to get started, right? Daily tasks, organization, avoidance, overwhelm, prioritizing, making choices, fear of rejection. Think about these. So we've got a lot of strengths and these things that we can look at and we can think, okay, how can we do this, right? I want to talk about time for a minute. It came up in the last speech. Time blindness is a interrupting myself. Before I go on, because I want to go into some strategies, I want you to think, this is another Dr. Russell Barkley thing. In order to get things done, it must be, for the ADHD brain, it must be urgent, novel, or interesting. If it's not one of these, then it's really challenging to actually get it done. And so what we have to do is we have to teach ourselves how to do that. One of the things that we talked about this morning when we were meeting about this was being a Jewish woman in today's society, or being a woman, or living in today's culture. We have certain expectations, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen right now because that's kind of all that I wanted to share on that end. We have certain expectations that we feel are old belief systems that we need to follow. We're expected to be able to get things done, and we're expected to get it done at a certain level, right? And when we have a hard time prioritizing certain things and knowing what to get done or knowing how to get started, then it makes it really, really hard to live up to that expectation. So what do we end up doing? We tend to avoid, we tend to procrastinate, right? So the first thing I want you to do is set some realistic expectations for yourself, right? Set some realistic expectations for yourself. And I'm actually gonna turn off my chat because I'm getting a little distracted by it, but I want you guys to keep talking. But I'm gonna come back to some of the things that you're saying, because you guys are saying such amazing things. And I want you to recognize when you're doing black and white thinking, that all or nothing thinking, and set that aside. Set aside that all or nothing thinking for a second, and try to take bite-sized, what's the word I'm thinking? Try to take a bite, like a little bite at a time, out of what it is you're trying to do. Okay. So you're setting your expectation. You want to set a realistic expectation for yourself, right? And instead of making the goal about finishing the entire task at one time, focus on completing the smaller thing. Bring it as close to you as possible. How can you make it as not intimidating as possible. And getting started is hard, right? So getting one little thing is better than doing nothing. So if you can start on that one small task, I like to set a timer, right? I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to say, I am going to give myself 10 minutes to focus on this one part of this task, or on this task. I'm going to give myself a time. And at the end of that time, I either go on to something else, or I stick with, or I say, you know what, I can add a little more time to it, but at least I got 10 minutes of it done. So I'm not being so hard on myself. Okay. So that is about setting expectations for yourself. I saw something before about someone that said that they have, yes, and I want to talk about body doubling in just a minute, actually. I saw a comment that someone wrote before about having all these different notebooks and not knowing what to do and how to work with these notebooks. And I have something called a Remarkable. This started happening to me years ago, where I had a million different notebooks on all my different clients, on all my different things, on all my own kids. I have a Remarkable, and I keep everything in one place. I can sync it to my computer, but I don't really do it. But I have all my clients in here. I have all my information in here. It is a digital notebook. So what I'm doing is I'm making something that's really challenging for me, and I am bringing it and I'm making it more like I'm kind of, yes, so many notebooks, right? I have so many notebooks. The Remarkable is huge, and I would definitely recommend getting something that doesn't have any distractions on it. It's not connected to my internet. It's not connected to my my social media, anything, my phone, no texts. I do not get distracted, and I write in it. And then I have everything in one place. Okay. And there was somebody just asked something about body doubling. And I want to talk about this because I think this is really an important thing. It's really a thing to have somebody sitting there across from you and being able to work across from them and have and not work on the same thing, but I can say this happens a lot with my clients. So I work a lot with college students. That's like the core of my client base. And sometimes when there's something that they have a hard time getting started on, I will say, you know what? How long do you think it's going to take you to get this done? Right? So we'll estimate the amount of time, even though we don't understand time at all. And we'll kind of guess on it. And then I'll say, okay, let's sit here, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to work on something out. I'm going to work on something, and then you're going to work on your thing, and we're going to check back in 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, we're going to just check back in. I'm going to see where you are, and I'm going to be kind of your accountability partner. Inevitably, that person is able to get done the thing that they weren't able to get started on. I think that it's so important to have somebody sitting near you. Do any of you remember growing up that maybe it was easier for you to do homework in a space where everybody else was? Yes, the Remarkable is expensive. There are less expensive things. I definitely saved up for that one. But so having a body doubling is when somebody else is sitting near you, but not doing the same thing that you're doing. So they're not actually doubling what you're doing. They're doing their own thing. You're doing your own thing, but you're sitting near each other and getting something done. It works as like an accountability partner. So I think that there actually are body doubling groups on the internet. You could go into a group and be a part of it all could check in. Maybe at the beginning of it, you say your goal, you sit down and you work for 45 minutes and then you come back in and check, or you can just do it with a friend. Maybe it's that thing that you never want to get done. And you sit down and you're like, I am going to pay these bills, right? So I want to question, I want to know from you guys, one burning question that you have. I haven't really related this to Judaism and to the being a Jewish woman, and I would like to, but I know that was talked about so much in the other, and the tips and tricks I think are kind of universal. But I would love to, I'm seeing a lot of conversations about body doubling. I love that. And people are doing it with friends. I didn't realize there was bodily doubling groups. Yes, there are. There are definitely body doubling groups. So here's the deal. I see something about medication, and there are other ways to release, there's other ways to release dopamine in your brain, and body doubling is one of them, but exercise is another, and movement is another. One of the ways that if I have emotional dysregulation, or if one of my family members has emotional dysregulation, I'll often throw on my tennis shoes and walk out the door and go for a walk, or take that person for a walk, even if we aren't talking about it. But movement regulates you. It brings dopamine to the frontal lobe, and it helps set us up for success. That's a great studying tactic too. It's a great way to actually get something done. During COVID, there were a lot of people who had a hard time getting started in their work because they were sitting there by themselves. So one of the things that I would advise is starting your day by going for a walk and making that transition, getting that movement in, coming back, sitting down, and then revisiting, and then doing what you needed to do, and setting out. And I see that I have 2 more minutes left. So that movement piece, and I have more tips that I want to share, but I know that we're going to do a tip sharing together as a whole group. And so my big tip that I want to share, I'm gonna save it for that. I wish I had more time, because I definitely shortened this, and I know that, and so I kind of rambled on, but I hope that you gathered something from it. If you, since people are going to start coming back into this room, I'd like you to throw one thing into the chat that you are going to take away, that you might have learned, or that you might want to find out a little bit more about. Community, being part of a community. Can you elaborate? I mean, we cannot self-diagnose. We cannot self-diagnose. Please do not self-diagnose. Now, we can say we have ADHD tendencies and go to a professional who has diagnosed. Your psychiatrist, a neurologist, your general practitioner can guide you maybe in that direction, but a psychiatrist is always a great place to go. I'm happy to help create body doubling communities and help you find body doubling communities. And I just want to say one thing about community, because community is so important to me and overwhelming. And saying no is important too. So saying yes is important, but also saying I'll think about it. And when you're asked to do something within the community, and really thinking about what speaks to you and what you can relate to with regards to what you know that you can get done. I don't think that makes sense, but I'm very distracted, I think, right now by all the comments and by the people coming back in the room. I love that somebody just said they feel better about being able to start super small. Give yourself grace and be able to start super small. Bring it down. Don't feel like you have to get the whole thing done in order to feel successful. That is huge. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you get farther by taking little bites at things. It gets you, you're getting closer and closer to the end game, right? Please, I think we're done. I think our time is out. So, right, because I got a 2-minute warning, which is why I've kind of wound down. Am I done or no? Ariella?
I think you have 1 more minute, or people are coming back in. I'm not sure.
Okay, people are coming back in.
Several of us have asked for body doubling explanation.
Okay, I'll say body doubling again, because I think people have just rejoined. Body doubling is the whole idea of doing something alongside someone else. They do not have to be doing the same thing as you, but it's actually a great way to help you get something started. A lot of people with ADHD have a really hard time getting started on whatever that thing is, on that big presentation, on the you name it, on making Shabbat dinner, on whatever it is. So body doubling can allow you to have someone. Now it's become such a great experience on Zoom because people are right there. You can turn off your video if you want, or you can keep it on, and you can sit there and actually start doing the thing that it is that you were. Whether it's cleaning up a space in your house and starting small, remember we said starting small, cleaning up a space in your house, or whether it's actually working on paying the bills or doing a project for work or helping your child research for something. Body doubling, there are teen communities, there are adult communities online for body doubling. And if we'd like to create a Jewish women's community body doubling, I would love to do that. I mean, I'd be honored to, I need it, right? So I would love that. And let's do it. Let's get it started as part of SVIVAH. Let's, I mean, I'm excited to learn more about this organization in general. And I'm also, I want to have more intimate conversations about this. And we can do that in smaller groups. So and my timer just went off, by the way. So I want to tell you that this is my favorite thing. It's a timed timer. So I'll tell my tip with it in a minute. When we're going through and sharing tips. I apologize that I was so scattered, but I wanted to kind of throw as many things out there as I could. And I'm so to be here and to share, and I know that and I do a lot of work with companies, and I do a lot of work with parents, and I do a lot of work with teens and adults. And I have different presentations for each, and I have different groups and individual coachings, but I'm a Jewish woman who has ADHD and who's raising people with ADHD.
Hilary, you're amazing, and you have so much to offer, and there's so many different needs and facets, and we were so obnoxious to say hi in 20 minutes or less. Fix everybody. Please go.
No, I want to say one thing. Sorry, I'm so sorry, but thank you. But no, you weren't obnoxious. I do want to say that someone just mentioned How to ADHD. Love Jessica McCabe. She is incredible. I've actually met her. The International ADHD Conference is incredible. I presented it last year at the International ADHD Conference. This year it's in LA, for those of you who are out there. It was in Dallas a few years ago, where I'm from. Jessica McCabe is incredible. Oh, you're writing up what I said. And then I heard about, there are several podcasts. ADHD Rewired is a great one. There are there's a lot out there. I can't think of them off the top of my head, on the top of my head, but I just am so the hostess there. He is speaking as a keynote at the International ADHD Conference. I will leave you at that. Mwah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God. Like major FOMO that I couldn't be in both places at the same time. Ugh. Okay, we are gonna bring all of our speakers back up to the spotlight for a super duper speed round of tips and tricks. It's that time, friends, for like share with us one thing that is like in the category of people need to know this thing, huge or teeny, has been helpful for me. Just share it. And for the crowd amongst the rest of us, like feel free to put things in the chat if you also have something to add that's in this category. I'll call on people. We'll keep it going. Hilary, go. What do you
Okay,
got?
cool. Thank you. So you guys asked about my times timer, right? So I used to have a million of these all over the house. We use them for everything. But my favorite is we all go to the grocery store, right? And how many we see when we're at the grocery store and how long could it take? Hours, right? But I have 4 kids and I work and I have whatever, and I don't have time to spend all those hours at the grocery store. So I often have one of these in my purse, or I use my phone, which has kind of a time timer on it now anyway. And I say, you know what? I got to be in the carpool line in an hour. I have to be at the checkout line in 40 minutes. I am setting a timer and it helps my grocery shopping. It gets me quicker. It gets me through the store quicker. It is the best. I use my timer at the grocery store. That's my trick. My tip.
Amazing. Thank you. Across the screen, Sara.
Okay. I have two quick ones. You'll have to take 2 because we said one general, one religious. One is hold the dialectical frame. I love DBT. So I just want to say for everyone who's here, I as opposed to focusing on the second part of what I'm going to say, a dialectic is 2 opposing things can be true at the same time, and it creates a new reality. This is a real neurological condition, the way that your brain works. And we are going to have days that are difficult, and intending to do that, and we're going to do the best we can, and to validate it and hold the space for the fact that we are going through a lot, and we are really hurt and pained by other people. We have been disappointed by, again, right, like a Jewish system that we know is meant to be accessible, and we struggle with that. And so we're holding that, and we're working through, but we're holding the fact that it is real, and it means to be compassionate. It's supposed to like dictate to really, like, there's 2 parts of this, the opposite. Be self-compassionate and accepting. It is a really hard thing, and it's really difficult. And let's understand that people struggle. And dialectic, the other part, at the same time, take ownership. It's true. I really like to say, like, okay, I have ADHD. Like, dinner is really hard all the time. It's like 3 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Thank God I set timers, and it tells me what to do. And say to myself, right, what can I do to set myself up for success, to like get dinner ready? And like, what's one little like IDF, intensity, duration, frequency, as we said before. And then I would say my Jewish oriented tip is, I say the 3 C's in the book: chavruta, and I'll say what they are: chabura and community. My 3 C's. It is key. I'm telling you, the answer, it's like God gave us the answer within our community, even though it's the thing that causes us stress. Chavruta is like when people learn just like one other person in the pair, right? Have a chavruta in life. It could be a person who also has ADHD, who you like text like, I'm falling apart, like who gives you that strength, or you're like working on things together. By the way, if you have ADHD, you probably are really helpful to somebody else, but it's harder to help yourself, and vice versa. And just to like tell them, like, I'm accountable for doing this. So chavrusa in life, or it could be someone who's on carpool with you, and they're going to remind you that you have carpool that day. There's always like that responsible person who like knows in 3 years from now their kid's going to have carpool and it's going to be really messy. Is a study partner. Thank you. And it is one of the ways with Jewish learning, they like build that in, and it happens to be with ADHD. It's really helpful. Accountability. A chabura is a group, right? This is what we're talking about. Groups are they're cost, right, effective, have this group. It helps with accountability. It's hard to remember and get ourselves motivated to do it, but this is a great way if you build it in once a week. I don't care. We don't have to call it whatever it is, but like call it a group, and we're going to work on like just, you know, showing up as parents, showing up as people, showing up as doing the best we can. And the other C is community is just, but you know, and that could be really varied, but use the community, outsource when you can, and rely on the community. We're here to help you. You cannot do it yourself. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's too much. And we know that people with this brain do better. It's just, I had to ask for help in working this through tonight, but I'm presenting, right? So yeah, if I can't get over the fact that I need to rely on others, then it's going to stink. So 3 C's. Sorry, that was really long. So you could, I don't know.
Beautiful. All good. Hollis, go.
Okay, so I can't concentrate unless I'm in motion. And so instead of getting up and wandering around a room all the time, I put an under-desk elliptical under my work desk, and I have a bag of crocheting everywhere I go, and everyone knows it. And I once crocheted a hat and biked 8 miles while teaching a class on Tehillim. So you do what you got to do. So that, and the other thing is keys. Everywhere I walk into a room with keys in my hand, I put them down and I say to whoever is in the room, when I can't find my keys, I put them here. And then people will be like, oh, Hollis, your keys are there. Don't forget that. And it's lovely. So thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Tema, you're on.
It's all super relatable. I have air tags on like everything so they can make noise when I lose them. So I think for me, this has become sort of my thing that I say to myself all the time is outsource your executive function, right? Like my executive function is not going to work. And so is that a person? Is that my Asana task manager that we use at work? Is it my calendar? Whatever it might be. And then also make sure that you pay attention to the thing. Because I feel like I was just realizing tricking myself doesn't work, right? Like I'm the person who sets the watch 5 minutes fast and then subtracts 5 minutes from the time and is late, right? So like that sort of stuff doesn't work. So I just keep kind of coming back to like, I actually turned off every single notification on my iPhone so that I could turn on the ones that I needed rather than trying to turn off one at a time until I got to the right place. And I'm just playing with it. And the sort of last piece I'll say is just experiment. If it's not working, switch. Google is my best friend. I Google like ADHD strategy to do blah like all the time. And I'm finding some great stuff. And if it doesn't click, I move on to the next. And being okay with that. And also recognizing that my ADHD might be what's making me be like, that didn't work, or it worked for 2 days, and I move on to the next thing. So that's really my main stuff. And that applies to everything. Life, work, Jewish community, all of it.
Melissa.
Give me for calling me. My ADHD jump in impulses kick in. So my favorite, tactical hack is Google Tasks, which I discovered this year from the Year of the Jewish Women Facebook group. Because it like works for the way my brain works. But my biggest hack with that is that it doesn't matter what particular hack anyone else tells you works if it doesn't actually work for the way your brain needs it to work, right? Like Tema also said that she really likes writing on paper. If I write things on paper, I'm going to lose them all, right? Like it's taking the time to figure out what works for you and for your hack. So that's my little mini soapbox about like any particular hack, right? Like Asana drives me crazy and up a wall, and I'm so glad I don't work for an organization that requires me to use Asana because I hate it, and I hate whenever anyone makes me put anything in it. And then from a Jewish perspective, I just want to say that, like I said this before, right? Like it can be hard, and our Jewish rituals and life and community also gives us a lot of space to create new things. So I also want to like empower us all to create what you need it to be, right? Create the ritual that you need. Create the moments you need, create the spaces you need, create the communities you need. Find the people that work for you and that empower you and enliven you so that you can have the Jewish community and rituals and etc. that you need so that your Jewish life can also be fulfilling, because it should be and it can be. And
I want to thank everyone, all of our speakers this evening, every single person who showed up, whether you were active on, on the screen, on the conversation, on the chat, if you were behind just an initial and a blank screen, whatever, you were here and contributed to this being what it was tonight. I'm so grateful, and I'm going to turn it back to Ariella.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Hollis. Thank you, Tema. Thank you, Melissa. This was, and honestly, the chat was insane. Thank all of you. This was amazing and just so rich. I'm going to hurry because I know everybody wants to go to bed or follow up on what the president had to say, if that's your thing. I want to ask all of you, save the date. Our next upcoming program is going to be on Wednesday, August 7th. Our Torah focused on Tisha B'Av, a little bit different subject area, but please come. We would love to have you. We're going to share with you a quick survey just to let us know how this was, how this could be better, what you'd like more of, any feedback that you have. I promise we read every single thing. This came up multiple times tonight. We have a closed SVIVAH Facebook group that is just for people who have been and are part of SVIVAH. So everything that is shared there stays in there. It's not shareable outside. No one can copy and paste it, et cetera, et cetera. The link for that will be in the chat and in the follow-up email that we'll send. Can we please use that space to share, to talk, to reach out to each other, to find each other again, lean on each other, be those accountability buddies, et cetera, et cetera. Hilary, I loved your idea. We will follow up in that conversation. That would be wonderful.